topic is Social Security. And a couple of years ago, I had participated in a webinar at that time also with the Kent District Library folks. And I followed up with Trish and said, what do you think? I think it might be time for another seminar or webinar, if you will. So we have Social Security today. And then on Wednesday, we have the topic of Medicare. My area of specialty is probably more Medicare than it is Social Security, but as a firm, we do help people with their Social Security. So today what we want to do is keep it fairly high level in terms of what is Social Security, what are some of the basic rules that you need to be aware of in some of the claiming strategies that are still out there. So I'm not going to go too deep into the weeds. It's, again, going to be a little bit more high level. I would tell you that if you haven't set up a Social Security account, I would strongly encourage you to do that, whether it's to apply for your benefits or whether it's to apply for your Medicare. You will need that Social Security account set up. There's actually 3 different ways you can log into it. If you have been out there prior to 2021, you're good to go. You still have a Social Security sign-on with your credentials. Otherwise, they have 2 new ways to actually set up your account. But it is a good way to learn. They have a lot of good tools that are out there in retirement calculators and that type of thing. So I'm sure when you have nothing else to do, you could actually go out there and look at the website and learn a bit more. So these 2 topics, Social Security as well as Medicare, become very important, especially as we get a bit older. Doesn't mean a specific age, but generally speaking, from our firm's perspective, we help people with their financial planning or their income planning and their healthcare planning. Generally, by the time they get into their late 50s or early 60s, these are 2 topics that become much more important in terms of fully understanding how they work, how they don't work, what you can do and what you can't do. So we do have a chat box. If along the way you have any questions, feel free to chat with us. As we mentioned earlier, we are going to go ahead and record this. And I also have some handouts, including a copy of the presentation, which is a PowerPoint, which we certainly can share with you. So just let Trish know that. So without further ado,
there's one first question. I don't know if you want to address it as you go, but you need to set up the account if you aren't ready to collect Social Security.
Good question. Yes, I do highly recommend that you go ahead and set it up, partly because your benefits in terms of what you've paid into Social Security, they are posted on the website. And it's always a good idea to go out there and make sure that the numbers are accurate per year. So one thing to know is that when you do sign up, and you don't have to sign up, but if you do go ahead and sign up, they will no longer send you a paper summary of your benefits. So then it all becomes electronic, but anytime you want to go out there and look at it, your benefit statement will now be out there. And it's much like it has been in the past with the paper. It will very clearly say, this is your benefit at your full retirement age. This is if you waited till age 67 or 68, so on and so forth. So to answer the question, I would recommend that you go ahead and get it set up, but it isn't a requirement, but it's certainly going to be a lot easier when you get closer to wanting to turn it on, as well as to apply for your Medicare. Remember, your Medicare is age 65. What we're going to be talking about today, the earliest you could collect your Social Security is 62. So sometimes people get a little confused on, well, which age for this one and what age for that one? Medicare is 65. First time you could become eligible for Social Security would be age 62. Okay, there's a picture of our team. There I am there in the middle. And we just recently had a team picture. I do represent the health insurance side. I am responsible for the team. Amy is right over here to the right-hand side here. And then we have Kristen and we also have Becca. So when it comes time to plan for your health insurance, whether you're under 65, over 65, we are definitely here to help you. The reason, again, that I'm doing Social Security is I actually did it for many years, but it became much more apparent that the financial advisors at our firm were really better equipped, not just to do the analysis, but because it is part of your income planning, you really need to take a step back at the bigger picture. Because what you're going to see is Social Security is only part of your income. So by working with a financial advisor, you then have the opportunity to have him or her talk in more detail about your 403B or your IRAs or your Roth or so on and so forth. So just keep in mind that it's a component of that. I'm going to keep mine fairly high level, and I'm certainly a resource as far as getting you information. Okay, so a little bit of history here. You may or may not know. Social Security was put into play in 1935, and the president at the time was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. It was put in place during the Great Depression. We all know about that period of time in our history where many people were impoverished. So by the same token, many people also had access to pensions. Pensions were the means of retirement back in the early 1900s, 10, 1920, 1930. We didn't have 401ks. We didn't have 403Bs. So at that time, 1935, the president and Congress said, let's put together a plan where people will pay into the system over the course of their working career. And at that point, when they decide to call it quits at age 62 being the youngest age, okay, they could go ahead and collect their benefits. It was originally designed to help senior citizens escape poverty in old age. But what people have found, or what we have found, is that more and more people are relying upon that source of income to actually make ends meet. And that's for a variety of reasons, which we could talk a lot about in terms of our environment today. It was never intended to be the only source of income in retirement. The eligibility for anybody that's on this call is you must have worked at least 10 years or more. If for some reason you did not, which was true of people in the early 1935, 45, 55, a lot of women didn't work. They were at home caring for their families and their children. Their husband was working. The government calls that a spousal retirement amount that they would become eligible for. So by the same token, if you were married and you did not work, you would be eligible for half, and we're going to go through that, of your spouse's primary insurance amount. Social Security has a ton of different terms, and it can get a bit confusing. So we're going to kind of touch upon those right off the bat. Again, if you do set up an account, they also will explain in greater detail what these terms mean. But it's important that you have a good foundation in going forward, because they're going to use the acronyms. They're not going to spell it out for you. So FRA, when you hear that, that refers to your full retirement age. That is dependent upon your year of birth. So in a moment, you'll see the different birth dates and associated full retirement age. I was born in 1955. My full retirement age is 66 in 2 months, okay? I don't know what the ages of everybody are on the webinar, but in a moment you'll see what that diagram looks like. PIA stands for Primary Insurance Amount. So in a moment, you'll see that the government will take the 35 highest earning years, and they're going to put some math to that, some formulas that they have applied, and they're going to give you a primary insurance amount. And that's the amount that you are eligible for at your full retirement age. DRC stands for Delayed Retirement Credit. That is available to you if you delay your enrollment in Social Security beyond your full retirement age. COL stands for Cost of Living Adjustment, which is typically done on an annual basis. Not always, but in general, the government does evaluate whether or not there will be a cost of living adjustment for your Social Security benefit. Then we have the benefits described in the following ways. We have what's referred to as a spousal benefit. We have an individual benefit, and we have a survivor benefit. A survivor benefit would be a married couple or even a divorced couple who had been married for at least 10 years. If the spouse passed away, one would be eligible for the survivor benefit, but not both. So in general, most people qualify at least for the individual benefit, and then depending upon whether or not you're married or not or divorced, you might qualify for the spousal or the survivor benefit. So it is an important source of retirement income. It's intended to supplement your income when you're no longer working. Think of it as a paycheck instead of a paycheck. One day when you decide to call it quits, that was its original design, is so that you would have monies to live on. And the beauty of it is a lifetime benefit. So even though you may not have paid into the system for all the benefits that you will have claimed, because we are living much longer than ever before. And that is one of the reasons that the program is, I should say, kind of in trouble, if you will, is the fact that years ago, people lived into their 60s and 70s. Now people are living well into their 90s and even 100, but they never paid into the system as if they were going to live that long. So the government is having to make some changes. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Right now, they even will state that by the year 2033 or the year 2034, that they're not going to be able to pay 100% of the benefits. But one of the big factors has been age. People are living longer than ever before. And there are not as many people paying into the system as years in the past. When we look at the working population, there aren't as many people paying into the system with that payroll tax. Many people have, and I've heard this a couple of times, numerous times, have said, if I would have only known what it meant to claim early, I wouldn't have done that. So when you do claim early, you do take a haircut. So if you turn it on at age 62, depending upon when you were born, you are not going to get 100% of your primary insurance amount, and you'll never be able to make it back up. So it is a very important decision that is one that will be with you for the rest of your life. So here's the first rule, basic rule: monthly benefits rise with claiming age. I just met with somebody about their Medicare. I said, oh, I see you haven't collected Social Security. What are you going to do? They said, we are going to wait till age 70. So they have worked with their financial advisor. They've put together a plan that says they can wait to collect their Social Security until age 70. Some people can't wait that long. Some people might look at their health history and say, nope, I'm going to take it because I've got some health issues that are going on. I don't think I'm going to live till age 70. That might be a reason to take it. Other people are going to need the money to live on when they are no longer working. So there are a variety of reasons that go into why somebody would claim. That is really the value of a financial advisor. And as I mentioned before, we do that. So if you have any interest in that, certainly give us a call and we'll make sure that we put you in contact with one of our advisors. My husband started the firm, Cornerstone Retirement Partners. We are on 28th Street about 20 years ago. And then we also have Nolan Gosley, who is the owner of the wealth management side of our practice. So those are two people that you certainly could talk to about when do I take it. But here's the impact of taking it early or waiting. So here's your primary insurance amount. It's determined based on your age 62. The government looks at your record, which is out there online, and it looks at the highest 35 years of earnings. You will then receive this amount if you apply at your full retirement age. So what they show you on that next bullet point is that there is a maximum amount determined each year in terms of what the government pays out. So they're saying that if a person born in 1961 waits until age 62, Right now, the maximum benefit would be $3,653. Now realize that person made a lot of money along the way, so they're just simply showing that that is the amount that would be the absolute maximum. So the government puts together thresholds as far as how much Social Security you pay up to a certain limit. And then after a certain limit, they are no longer taking Social Security out. So the more money you make, the more they are taking for your Social Security, which will drive your monthly amount. So here's the full retirement age. Anybody born between 43 and 54, age 66. There's my birth date, 1955, 66 and 2 months, and they go up in increments of 2 months. And the latest one that we have on here is 1960 in labor and later, and the age there is 67. So anybody that's born in 1960, right now, your full retirement age is 67. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Congress does take action, and they are anticipating, although I've heard this for a long time, and I've been doing this for 18 years, is perhaps we'll see more action next year with the presidential elections, that the candidates may say, okay, I guess we really need to do something, and this is what we're going to go about doing. Don't be surprised if that 1960 and later, maybe it goes to 1970, and then they make it 68. But they're going to have to do something in an effort to make the program solvent. So here's your full retirement age. This is the age at which you can apply for that 100% of the benefit referred to as your primary insurance amount. So second bullet point talks about taking it early. They refer to it as an actuarial reduction. I refer to it as a haircut, just so you know. You will not get 100% if you apply before your full retirement age. Claiming after your full retirement age does result in a higher monthly benefit. That is what is referred to as the delayed retirement credit. So, just a little personal side note, I won't tell you how old I am, but I did go beyond my 66 and 2 months because I did want some of those delayed retirement credits. So here's the consequence of filing before your full retirement age. So let's say your retirement age is 66. You were born prior to 1955. You can see that you will take a haircut. At 62, you'll have given back 25%. At 63, 20%, so on and so forth. So you can see the money that you leave on the table as a result of claiming early. The same thing holds true of age 67 being your full retirement age. You're going to leave 30% of the value of your retirement benefit on the table by claiming early at age 62. So the consequences of filing after your full retirement age, this is the delayed retirement credit. So if you are in the 66-year-old category, born before 1955, you could see that by waiting till age 70, you will have accrued 32% more in your benefit. By the same token, the cost of living will go right along with that. So yes, it is 8% per year, but it's actually slightly more than that because they will factor in the cost of living. If your full retirement age is 67, you can see that the total benefit at age 70 would give you 24% more. And again, it goes back to working with someone or understanding that you have buckets of money, and those buckets have to provide an income for the rest of your life. And many people are concerned about running out of money. So this could be one of the reasons to let your Social Security go as long as it possibly could. And again, it is a lifetime benefit. Here's cost of living, just a little bit of background there. In 2023, it was one of the highest cost of livings that we'd had in like over 10 years. It was 8.7%. This year, they're projecting the cost of living is, I think, in the neighborhood of under 2%. Nothing has been finalized yet. but they have said over a 75-year period of time, it averaged about 2.4%. So the upshot is COLAs, or cost of living combined with delayed retirement credits, might make delayed claiming a much better deal. So all of that should be taken into consideration. So a lot of our clients too, we will sit down and we'll ask for a budget, and, you know, has your house paid off? And what about this? And what about that? And those are all factors that go into, does it make sense to turn on the Social Security, or does it make sense to instead take income from another source? That is the role of a financial advisor. So if your advisor has not helped you with Social Security, I really encourage you to go back and say, look, and I know just enough to be dangerous, but I would like your help in putting together this piece of the puzzle. So just as a quick couple of reminders here, if you apply early, your benefits will start, can't see some of this here. There we go. Will start lower, and they will always stay lower for the rest of your life. You'll never be able to get them back. The COLAs do magnify the impact of early or delayed claiming. So those are, I call it kind of icing on the cake, the cost of living. The longer you live, the more beneficial it is to delay benefits. So if you think you're going to live well into your 80s or 90s, generally the break-even point is in your early 80s as to whether people take it or they don't. Your decision does impact survivor benefits. So if you are married, we always recommend that the higher earning spouse wait as long as possible, because in the event he or she is the one that passes away first, it does provide a greater benefit for the surviving spouse. You will also need to take your health status, life expectancy, so on and so forth, all into consideration, as I mentioned earlier. For me, I decided that I was going to take it before age 70. I probably could have waited, but I wanted the money. So my money just goes right into a savings account, and we use it for kind of unexpected types of purchases or special purchases. So here is the government website. You can obtain your Social Security statement. Otherwise, you can even go to the SSA, that's the one I use, .gov website, and you can look around. But ultimately, you can set up an account. You'll be able to pull your statement. You'll have a sign-on. You'll have a password. You'll also be able to use the government retirement estimator, and it's a pretty good tool, or you could use one of the calculators on the Social Security website. So here's the basic rule number 2. Your spouse may be able to claim benefits based on your earnings record. So when is it smart to do this, and how is that done? So your spousal benefit equals 50% of the worker's primary insurance amount if the spouse applies at their full retirement age, okay? So as I mentioned earlier, sometimes we get spouses that have not worked. They must wait until their full retirement age to actually apply for 50% of the other spouse's benefit, okay? And the government also does look very closely when a married couple applies. They look at both benefits. But in a minute, again, you'll see kind of an example of how that actually works. But again, the key is the full retirement age, because when you go early, you are going to take a haircut. Primary workers must have filed for the benefit for the spouse to get the 50%. The spouse must be at least 62 to receive any kind of reduced benefit. We mentioned that earlier, or full retirement age for the full benefit. There are no delayed credits on spousal benefits after your full retirement age. And for the most part, you can only receive a spousal benefit if it's greater than the benefit available on your own record. So that's why we talked about the individual record versus the spousal record. So here's an example. So we have Jack and Jill, and Jack's primary insurance amount is $2,000, and Jill's primary amount is $800. So 50% of Jack's would have been $1,000, except Jill's primary insurance amount is less than $50. So the key here is if Jill applies at her full retirement age, her benefit will be $1,000. So what about the spouse whose benefit is higher? Here's the example. Jack's primary insurance amount is $2,000, and Jill's primary insurance amount is $1,500. Well, in this particular example, Jill will not receive any portion of her husband's 50% because Jill's benefit is more. So half of Jack's would have been 1,000, but Jill is going to be receiving 1,500 on her own. So because Jill's primary insurance amount exceeds 50% of Jack's, she will be paid her own benefit, not the spousal benefit. So in that example, the spousal benefit will never apply. So in terms of maximizing your spousal benefit, this of course assumes that you are married, where the lower earning spouse's PIA, primary insurance amount, is more than 50% of the higher earning spouse's primary insurance amount. Again, we're going to show an example. So both spouses might delay to age 70, or one spouse could take advantage of the spousal benefits as allowed through the Budget Act of 2015. Now, what I would tell you here is this. In a moment, you're going to see what you used to hear claiming strategies that were referred to as file and suspend and filing restricted. Those are pretty much off the table unless somebody in our audience was born prior to 1955 and hasn't done anything with their Social Security. So here's an example of a strategy for a married couple. So Bob and Betty are 60 years old. Bob's primary insurance amount is $3,000 and Betty's primary insurance amount is $1,800. The assumption here, and we can actually run an illustration, you'll see it in a moment, where we extrapolate the numbers and kind of speak a little bit to the timing. So the life expectancy in the program that I use, we're going to say Bob hopes to live to age 85 and Betty hopes to live till age 95. Generally speaking, women do live a bit longer than men. Not always, of course, but in this scenario, we decided that those were the ages that we were going to have extrapolated in terms of the numbers. So this particular scenario, which there's 4 of them, and you may not be able to see them all, it basically will tell us based on your birth date, based on your primary insurance amount, what might be the best strategy. And again, these are the things that we help people with. So it goes on to say that there are 4 possibilities. That very first possibility says that both Bob and Betty said, I'm pulling the trigger at age 62. So when they pulled the trigger at age 62, they took a haircut. So instead of receiving their original benefit amount, they're going to take $2,224 for him, and we're going to take $1,345 for her. All right, so what it said is, Bob, you're not going to get $3,000. You're going to take $2,242. So I don't know whether Bob had a haircut at 25 or 30%, because I didn't do the math here, but clearly you could see that he was going to take a reduction in his benefit, as Betty did too, because Betty's benefit at age 60, now let's see, 67 is actually the basis. At age 67, Betty would have actually taken $1,800, and instead Betty is going to take a haircut of $1,345 for the rest of her life, unless Bob passes away, and this gets into what we call the survivor benefit. So here's what to remember about the survivor benefit. You have to pick one or the other. You don't get to keep both benefits. And sometimes that creates quite a hardship when a married couple, was depending upon the income, Social Security, for both people, and now one is no longer available because you have to pick one of the 2 benefits, and obviously you're going to pick the higher one. You actually go into Social Security with a death certificate, and they will change you from your individual benefit or your spousal benefit to the survivor benefit. Number 2 says both claim at their full retirement age. So that shows us that their retirement age in this example was 67, and those would have been the benefits. Item number 3, Betty claims early, but Bob claims later. So in that example, which is certainly fine, They looked at it and said, Betty wants her money, so she's taken her $13.45. Bob says, you know what, honey, we can wait. I'm waiting until age 70. I'm going to get $45.35. And in the event I pass away first, Betty's going to get a whole lot more. Look at the difference between 62.25 and number one versus both of them pulling the trigger at age 62. And Betty would have only received $35.35. And I know no one knows what the outcome will be here, but it is part of a strategy. And again, kind of working with ages and health history, those are all things that will kind of help discern which one of these options may make the most sense for you. Item number 4 is the maximum lifetime nominal benefit. So it simply says, we're both waiting until age 70. They both maximize their benefit to the 45.35, the 27.21. So you add two numbers together and they're both taking collectively over $7,000 home at age 70 versus you could see at age 62, they would only be taken over home probably about 35 or 3,600. So there's a big difference, or someplace in between. Again, if Betty was the survivor, she would pick her husband's benefit, certainly over her own, and her benefit would then become 45.35. So all this does is pictorially show the numbers on the previous page. It's a bucket of money based on the ages that were estimated here. Again, this shows what the surviving spouse would receive, and you can see that there's great benefit in the higher income spouse waiting as long as he or she could, making it more advantageous for the surviving spouse. Example number 2, Bob and Betty are now 60. Bob's primary insurance amount is $3,000, but Betty's primary insurance amount is $800, so it's not $1,800. Life expectancy for Bob, still 85, benefit or expectancy for Betty, 95. So again, rerunning through the numbers, you can see, and I won't go through all of them, but it definitely makes a difference. But here's what I wanted to point out. In the case of Betty, because Betty's primary insurance amount, half of Bob's $3,000 would have been $1,500. So we know Betty could collect $1,500. Let's see what happens. So in this particular example, Betty started at age 62. The government, and so did Bob, okay? The government is going to adjust for the spousal add-on. So that's the key that I want to show you here, is that when one of the spouses, less than 50% of the higher income spouse, the government will adjust for it. And you can see the numbers. Now, they will adjust for it at age 62, assuming both apply. But the better approach would have even been item number 2 over here, because there's still an adjustment, as you can see. Betty claims at her full retirement age, and look at the additional monies that she'll receive as a result of the spousal add-on. So again, when we're kind of comparing 1 versus comparing 2, there's quite a bit of difference here. We've got 2242 plus 598 plus 486 versus starting out with almost 34 or 35, 919 and 820. And again, you're going to get this. And again, this is something that we would be more than happy to run for you. We have the software. What we need is your primary insurance amount, and we need your birth dates. And at the end, you can just give us a call, send us an email, and I'd be more than happy to put this together for you. But this is how you basically read it. But you might have a financial advisor who says, well, I have the same software, because these are the kinds of things that they should be helping you with. Or again, I would recommend that you give us a call and you could talk to Nolan or Ron. Item number 3, we had Betty claiming earlier, Bob claiming later. We're going to kind of skip that. You can just kind of see the numbers. And again, it will show the nominal benefit here. In this particular example, though, and this is what this illustration software will show us, is that Betty could actually claim at age 67. She didn't have to wait till age 70. Bob waited until age 70, and they still gave her the spousal add-on, okay? So when we look at comparing item number 3 to item number 4, we've got 598, 45, 35, and 870, although they're going to happen at different points in time. And again, I'm looking at the numbers and just kind of adding them together. Again, the software actually extrapolates all of this by year, so you can see exactly what your income looks like based on your age. And again, pictorially, it simply shows us here that the longer you wait, the longer the bigger bucket of money, assuming that we have the husband living to age 85 and the wife living till age 95. A divorced person, this is rule number 3. If we have anyone in our audience that was divorced, is divorced, they may be able to receive a spousal benefit based on an ex-spouse's work record. So how do we go about doing that, and what are the requirements here? So here's what the government has said. Your marriage must have lasted 10 years or more. The person that's receiving the divorced spouse benefit must be unmarried. The ex-spouse must be at least 62 years old. If the divorce was more than 2 years ago, the ex-spouse does not need to have filed for benefits. Otherwise, they would have had to file for benefits. So, more than one ex-spouse can receive benefits on the same worker's record. That's also part of why the system is somewhat diminished in terms of benefits. My father has been married a couple of times, and my mother is a widow. And she keeps saying, you know what, Nance, I wonder if I'm going to get your father's survivor benefit in the event he passes away. But it can happen because she was married to him for 13 years. She'll always have that option in the event he passes away. She could say to Social Security, look, my benefit is not as much as my ex-husband. I want to apply for the survivor benefit, and she would need a death certificate to do that. Benefits paid to one ex-spouse do not affect those paid to the worker. So the government will pay, dependent upon a person meeting these conditions of the 10 years, and you cannot be married to collect the ex-spouse benefit. You would also potentially have to show your divorce decree, so you would want that available. And your divorced spouse benefit would stop upon any kind of remarriage, because you're not allowed to collect if you have remarried. Item number 4, the widow and the widower may receive survivor benefits, which we talked briefly about. So a couple has to have been married at least 9 months at the time of the demise of one of the spouses, except in the case of an accident. The survivor must be at least 60 years old to receive a reduced benefit, or 50 years old if they were disabled, or at their full retirement age for their full benefit. So instead of having to wait till age 62, if you are a survivor, you could collect at age 60, but you will take a reduced benefit by not waiting. The survivor benefit is not available if the widow or widower remarries before age 60 or before age 50, unless that marriage ends. Let's see that last one. So here's an example. So we have Joel and Julie married. Both are over their full retirement age. Joe's benefit is $2,000. Julie's benefit is $1,200. So half of Joe's would have been $1,000. Julie's is $1,200. They're both collecting. Joe passes away. Julie then notifies Social Security of her $1,200 benefit, which will now be replaced by the $2,000 a month survivor benefit. If Joe had maximized his benefit by claiming at age 70, because Joe didn't, he claimed earlier, this would have maximized Julie's survivor benefit. Kind of coming in for a landing here. So the survivor benefit will depend upon the age at which the deceased spouse originally claimed his or her benefit. So there's definitely benefit if the surviving spouse can wait till age 70. And again, this is where we'll do the math and run the illustration, or the age at which the widower claims the survivor benefit. So in a moment, we'll see another example here. So when eligible for both a retirement benefit and a survivor benefit, start with one benefit and switch to the other. So years ago, when I talked about those claiming strategies that people heard about, which was file restricted and file and suspend, those are off the table for most of us. But the one that remained is this one right here. So what it basically says is that the survivor could start at age 62 and wait until age 70 to collect their own benefit, at which point in time their own benefit, which would have grown by those delayed retirement credits. So here's an example of what I'm talking about. And again, a lot of folks don't know about this one because they think all the claiming strategies have gone away, but it hasn't gone away in the example here of the widow or the widower. So Wanda, age 60, her primary insurance amount is $1,200. Her deceased husband's primary insurance amount was $2,600. So in this example, Wanda could start her own retirement benefit at age 62. She would take the $1,200. She's going to take a bit of a haircut because she did not wait until her full retirement age. But she said, you know what? I'm taking the $840. I need the money to live on. And I'm going to switch then to my survivor benefit at her full retirement age, which is $2,600. Scenario number 2, this is another option for her. Scenario number 2, she starts her survivor benefit at age 60. She's going to take a bit of a haircut, and you could see she would then take home $1,859, okay? But she will stay at $1,859 versus actually being able to move to $2,600. And again, this is kind of the illustration where it shows the two different buckets with her claiming early versus waiting. That's the advantage of waiting. If you claim benefits, and I know this is a lot of material, and again, more than happy to send it to you. If you claim benefits before your full retirement age and you continue to work, which some of you will, some of you might be part-time, some of you might be full-time, you need to take into consideration that if you claim before your full retirement age, you need to be aware of the fact that there is a threshold associated with your income. We call this the earnings test. The earnings test changes every year. So here's what we've got for this year in 2023. If you apply for your Social Security before your retirement age, so let's say you were born in 1960, or actually before 1960, but now you want to turn it on and you are before your full retirement age. Let's say your full retirement age is 67. If you're still working, you need to keep your benefits, if at all possible, below $21,240. Otherwise, the calculation done by Social Security is they will take back $1 of every $2 that you earn because you've gone over the threshold. So we can do the calculation for you, but the key there is if you collect before your full retirement age and you make more than the amount allotted for the government and continue to work, you are going to pay back some of that money. Your benefit will be readjusted at your full retirement age. So they still keep putting the dollars into the bucket that determines the 35 years. And about the 35 years, it's not an average. The government, like most things, they have this fancy formula where they apply different factors, different cost of living and some other factors. So don't think it's just the average. They're going to take the top 35 earning years. So back to the earnings test, assuming that you are still working. So don't let your annual earnings test discourage you from working. Just understand what it is. But if you want to avoid the earnings test, and that's exactly what I did not want to pay the government back any of the money. So I waited beyond my 66 in 2 months, and I was able to get 100%. And I still work, and I plan on working for a number of years. So I don't have to pay anything back, okay? So there's one other rule that you should consider, and that is, and this applies to me, is that if you're collecting your Social Security, dependent upon what your other income looks like, okay? So we just talked about your working income and keeping it below the $21,000 figure. Now the government says, well, we have taxation that could apply to your overall tax rate as it applies to you taking your Social Security. So now that I'm collecting Social Security, I do get a government tax statement. It's like a 1099, and it will show what my earnings was from Social Security, and that becomes part of the overall income tax calculation. But basically, in a nutshell, they are looking at your provisional income. So your provisional income is a function of taking your adjusted gross income plus 1/2 of your Social Security benefit, and that's that statement that I talked about, plus any kind of tax-exempt interest. So tax-exempt interest generally for most of us is not very much. It tends to be some kind of international interest that you might have earned on one of your mutual funds or one of your accounts. So if you're married and you're filing jointly, ideally, if you keep your provisional income under $32,000, none of the Social Security monies that you receive for the year would be taxed. And then from there are different thresholds. If your income is 32 to 44, up to 50% of your Social Security amount due could potentially be taxed. Basically, it boils down to this. You do your taxes. When you get down to your bottom line, they're going to factor this in, and you may have a portion of your Social Security, not 50%, but you're going to have a portion of your Social Security that's going to be subject to the government's tax tables. Again, this is something really more for a financial advisor or even for a CPA. It wasn't a reason for me not to turn it on, but what I know is that the government does say if your income falls below these thresholds or above these thresholds, just be aware of the fact that you may have to pay. So, it doesn't take much to get above $44,000 in terms of provisional income for a married couple. And a portion of your Social Security is going to be taxable. Same thing with the single. As you can see, it's a single rate. Again, it's 85% for that single person who's over $34,000. And a person who's married, filing separately and living with a spouse, it looks like it's subject to 85%. It's got nothing to do with their provisional income. The downside to this thing is the government, believe it or not, has not revised these thresholds since day one. So these numbers are very low, and a lot of people will find themselves either in the up to the 50% or in the up to the 85%. Okay, other ways to maximize your taxes on Social Security benefits. There are strategies that can be employed. With my husband, before I turned my Social Security on, we sat down and looked at everything. That was part of why I turned it on when I did. But before that, we actually did some Roth IRA planning. And your Roth IRA is one way to reduce your taxes that are subject to the Social Security taxation. You're also going to find on Wednesday, if you're part of the Medicare Made Simple presentation, that is an important factor in determining what you pay for Medicare, because Medicare is not free. So what we have found is by trying in advance as best you can, start talking about what your tax structure might look like when you turn 65, because the government looks back 2 years. So they're looking back at the year 2021. And if you don't come aboard until 2023, or I should say 2025, and they're going to look at your 2023 income tax, there may or may not be things you can do this year, but you get the general gist. If you get ahead of the curve, there are things that you might be able to do to reduce your overall Part B threshold. And again, on Thursday, we'll talk more about that, but just keep in mind, right now, the base premium is $164.90, and everybody pays that at a minimum. And what you'll see on Wednesday is that the more money you make, and they're going to look 2 years back, the more the government's going to take for your Medicare Part B. So in the meantime, there are opportunities, perhaps, again, I don't know your age, where you can begin to plan for that. So reduce other income with tax advantage investments. Apparently you don't want to do it with municipal bonds. Anticipate your future IRA RMDs, that's your required minimum distribution, because that could put you in a higher tax bracket. Again, that's really what a financial advisor starts to look at. And then they talk about what bucket of money do you draw from a tax perspective. What's the most tax efficient way to withdraw your money that you have set aside? Is it Social Security? Is it the IRA? Is it the 403B? Is it a CD? Is it a municipal bond? Again, those are really all about financial planning, income planning, and those folks, that's what they do, and that's their specialty. Or delay Social Security. Certainly you're going to reduce the number of years your benefits then were subject to tax, and going through that grid. Reduce your expenses along the way, pay down your debt, adopt a simpler lifestyle if at all possible, and continue to manage your taxes throughout retirement. And again, that's what financial advisors do. They will help you determine what bucket do I turn on first and what could be the tax implications. And we work with CPAs. So we'll do what if scenarios. What if I do this? What does it look like on the income tax? What if I do that? So on and so forth. So we like to provide lots of different options. Okay, so I mentioned briefly earlier, I in fact had just read an article, and it's a little disturbing here. The article basically went on to say that retirees could see a reduction in benefits by 2033. I won't even tell you how much they said, but I know that for a long time it was 2034. So now they've got it in 2033. Well, that is only 10 years away. What they are saying here is not all the benefits would be reduced, but they are going to have some level of reduction. This article goes on to say that if you have a married couple, they're both going to take a bit of a haircut. They're going to give back money that actually was rightfully theirs, because the government needs to do something in terms of beefing up that big checkbook that has to pay out all of these benefits. And there's a lot of people that are collecting Social Security. So here are a couple of possibilities to get them where they need to go to be able to move that 2033 date out. Again, I'm not saying that in 2033 there's no money there. No, not saying that at all, but we don't know how it's going to be ratcheted back yet. Increase maximum earnings. So right now the benefit goes to 160. The deduction for Social Security, the tax, is based on a person's income of 160,200. So one of the proposals is to take it off the board altogether, pay tax however they decide to do it. Maybe they'll have a tier where you have it up to a certain amount and you pay this, and then when you hit another threshold, you pay that. Right now, if somebody hits 160,200, they don't pay any more tax in. Well, I think they need to do something about that. So they could either increase it, take it away altogether, who knows what they're going to do. But these are important issues that you're going to be faced with, and I'm going to be faced with. And Amy's younger than I am. She's going to be faced with. How is she going to plan for what is going to be there? Raise the normal retirement age. We saw that those that were born in 1960, they wait till age 67 to get 100% of their benefits. Maybe they're going to make it 1970 and it's age 68. I don't know. We just don't know. So be on the alert for that. Lower the benefits for future retirees. That's kind of what I alluded right there. Perhaps they'll do something lastly with the cost of living. Maybe there won't be any cost of living, or there'll be cost of livings for certain segments of the population and not for others. I don't know. The average benefit for people collecting right now is about $1,200, just to kind of let you know in terms of how the big picture looks. So coming in for a landing here, it's almost 5 o'clock. These are the questions that you want to ask yourself. When should I apply for Social Security? You could apply at age 62. You could take it all the way to age 70, but there are going to be factors that influence that decision. What if I want to keep working? Now you know there is a threshold if you decide to keep working. Doesn't mean you can't go over the 21,000 some odd dollar threshold, but you're going to pay a portion of it back. What if you've already applied? My understanding of that, unless they change the rule, is you could apply, change your mind, but you have to pay the money back, and it has to be paid back within a year if you changed your mind. How much will my benefit be? You can see it's going to be the lowest at age 62 and the highest at age 70. How can you coordinate spousal benefits? You got a little bit of a flavor for that. Now you know when you get those two benefit statements for a husband and wife, take a look at them. If one of yours is less than 50% of the other, you're probably going to qualify for a spousal benefit. If you don't wait until your full retirement age, you can still qualify for a spousal benefit, but you're not going to get 50% of the 100%. You're going to get something less than the 50% because you claimed earlier. What's the best long-term strategy for your situation? Really, that can only be determined by sitting down with you. Again, talk to your financial advisor. We can help you with the analysis, or give us a call and we'll sit down with you and go through it if you don't have an advisor. So what do you do next? You're more than welcome to give us a call. Cornerstone Retirement Partners. We do have an office on the southeast side of Grand Rapids. We still believe meeting face to face. I mean, we will do a Zoom just like we've done here. We will certainly do a phone call. But if you want to do a face to face, we're here to be able to do that for your Medicare as well as your Social Security. We are on Charlevoix Drive, which is in Centennial Park, but we're not far from the intersection of 28th Street and Cascade. We're right behind Meadowar Jewelers. The phone number there is listed, 616-301-2581. Option 1 gets you into the wealth management side. They already know that I'm doing this presentation, so if you call, we'll just ask you for some information and then decide what the next steps would be with your permission. We do have a website. It is Cornerstone-RP. The RP stands for retirementpartners.com/contact. And that's where you could, if you didn't want to call us, you could actually request a consultation. So Social Security is way too important for any kind of guesswork. So if nothing else, you've learned a little bit more about Social Security, a little bit more about the terminology that's being used, a little bit more about having more of a strategy and understanding. If you're married, you probably have more to work with than if you're single. But know the longer you wait, the more you'll have in terms of a retirement benefit. If you were to apply for your Social Security, you could use your account. It's very easy to apply. You would require 3 months in advance. And when you get out into the website and you actually pull down the menu there, it will say, when do you want it to start? You would pick your birth month. So let's say you turn 62 in October. You would pull down the month of October. You'd be 3 months in advance. So let's say the guy was really January of next year. So let's give ourselves some time. They want 3 months advance planning for utilizing the website. You pull down the menu and it will say, when do you want it to start? Let's say the guy turns 62 in January. You say January. You don't get the money until the following month. So they deposit the money into an account of your choice. So when you are actually completing it online, they are going to ask you for a checking account or a savings account, and that's where the money is deposited. You will receive the money every month, and it's generally around the same time each month. But it's when you first get started that they don't pay the first payment until the subsequent month. And when you are on Medicare, they will deduct it if you are on Social Security. So we encourage you to give us a call. I encourage any kind of feedback. If you want to send some, it sounds like we have some chat questions. We'll do that next. or just any kind of feedback that you think would be constructive. If you do indeed want the presentation that's been recorded, or you want the slides or anything that you've heard of here, we'll be more than happy to send it to Trish, and then she'll get it over to you. Okay.
Would a pension count towards the income that could put you into tax benefits?
And it does. Yes, it does. Good question, but that is definitely of consideration, correct?
If a resident who is not a citizen has been paying in for many years, are they eligible to collect once they reach retirement age?
Do they? Okay, so read it one more time. They are a U.S. citizen.
They're a resident, but not a citizen.
Okay, but they've been paying into Social Security, right?
Are they eligible to collect once they reach retirement age?
I guess I'm going to say, I believe so. My question to that person would probably be, have you received any Social Security statements? Because if you are eligible and you've worked at least 10 years or more, and maybe even less than 10, they're still going to send you a statement. So I don't know if that person can answer that part of it. It was Trish. Okay. No, I'd have to find out more about that. And that I certainly can. We'll write that one down, Trish. Yep. I'll write it over here. Okay. Paid in. And they are a resident, but not a U.S. citizen. Okay. No, I'll get an answer on that. I do have a contact at Social Security, and she's my go-to. So when I'm kind of stumped, I go to her. So I'll find that out. And that's it. Okay. All righty. So I thank you all for attending, and I look forward to helping you with your Medicare. If you've signed up for that, great. I'll see some names that I recognize. If not, if you need anything that sounded of interest to you, please let us know, or let Trish know. So thank you very much. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Tune into Cornerstone Retirement Partners' full radio program, Your Course to Retirement. Visit cornerstone-rp.com for many valuable resources, including those mentioned on this show and other great episodes of Your Course to Retirement.
The content of this radio show is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. You are encouraged to seek investment, tax, or legal advice from an independent professional advisor.
Ed Slott's Elite IRA Advisor Group is solely an indication that the financial advisor has attended training provided by Ed Slott and Company, passed biannual examinations on material covered at conferences and in webinars, and met other membership requirements, and does not constitute an endorsement of any kind. Ed Slott's Elite IRA Advisor Group members pay a fee for the educational programs that allow them to be included in the Ed Slott's Elite IRA Advisor Group. Membership does not guarantee investment success. Fiduciary duty extends solely to investment advisory advice and does not extend to other activities such as insurance or broker-dealer services.
Advisory services offered through Brookstone Capital Management, a registered investment advisor.
Advisory clients are charged a quarterly fee for assets under management, while insurance products pay a commission, which may result in a conflict of interest regarding compensation.
Any investments and/or investment strategies mentioned involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. Any comments regarding safe and secure investments and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not refer in any way to securities or investment advisory products. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Withdrawals of growth from annuities may be taxable as ordinary income in the year it is taken. Individuals should review contracts for specific details of the product's features and costs. Early withdrawals may subject the owner to penalties, fees, or taxes.